Brilliant. Great to be here, guys. One of the reasons why I've been asked here today is because of my sexual past and history. And I lost my virginity at quite a young age, and there was lots of reasons that happened. So part of this session is to kind of walk through that and just look at some of the struggles that we all face when it comes to relating and dating and relationships and so on. So that's where I'm kind of going to go with this here, is how to have a kind of healthy relationship. He's up for that? Sort of, yeah. Okay, great. Let's start with this. Attraction is a weird thing. I don't know if you remember back into primary school, around about the age of 8 to 9 is when most boys and girls kind of stop playing with each other. The kind of guys just get a bit strange, girls, and they just go, we don't like girls anymore, and they just don't play with each other in the playground. And then you hit adolescence again, and all of a sudden you become sexually aware again, and then sexually attracted to each other. And we're not quite sure what to do with that. At least I know as a bloke, sometimes we're not quite sure what to do with that. And if I liked girls, I didn't know how to tell them I liked them. So the way I used to show you girls how I liked you was I would like get a snowball and kind of chuck it in your face, and you'll be like, I'll be going hi, and you'll be like, you freak, right? And so I didn't kind of know what to do with that. Or another thing I would do was like punch you in the arm. I always thought was kind of good, but you still didn't seem to think it's good at all. And so we just didn't know what to do. I remember one day I went to an all-guys school, and right beside us there was an all-girls school. And I remember one day a bunch of the girls were walking past. I'm standing with a bunch of my friends, and I go to my mate, hey Brendy, she's a bit alright. He goes, she's a flippin' dog. And I went, only joking, didn't really like her, right? And just kind of walked off, right? And I just kind of backed away from it. And I just realised, gosh, there's certain ways taste works and attraction works, and you've got to be seen to be with the kind of girl that your friends sometimes like. And then somebody else will walk past and he'd go, I fancy her, and I go, well, not my taste, but fair enough. And then you get into this kind of image thing and trying to compete with whose girl's the most pretty and all that kind of stuff. And it just got a bit weird, and there's a bit of pressure with it. And just dealing with that was one of the first things I had to work through. But the other thing which played into that was there are 3 rules to being cool, right? They're international rules. It's really important that if you're going to date, that you're cool about it. Your street cred is really important. Here's the 3 rules. Rule number 1 is you don't smile, okay? So no smiling. Stop it. Okay? Not cool, okay? If you've got a cigarette, that can be cool. You can kind of walk around and just go. But no smiling. I try to do it, but I always look goofy. It's kind of... and it doesn't kind of work, okay? So rule number 2 is don't do anything stupid. And rule number 3 is if you do something stupid, you let on you meant it. I'm the guy in your class that you love to take the seat away from, that one. You go, hey! Break dance, right? And so I wasn't the coolest guy, I wasn't the funniest guy in the class. Paul McGuire is a guy in our class. He was brilliant. No matter how stupid you tried to make him look, he always came out looking brilliant in it. And I remember one of the last days of our school, one of the lads was sitting behind him, and he was wearing his coat, so the guy takes out a lighter and lights his coat, as you do. Right? And so we're all kind of thinking, that's a bit crazy. And so one of the guys goes, Paul, your coat's on fire. Didn't even faze him. He just stand up, didn't crack a smile, takes off his coat, puts it over the chair and goes, I know, it's a blazer. And just walked off, right? Didn't faze him at all, right? And he always came out looking good. And I wasn't that quick. I was a bit more socially awkward than that. And there's something about relating and dating that you've always got to be the funny guy or the person who's looking great. And it's not always easy. You can't always be funny. So being cool is important when it comes to relating and dating. There was also a pressure to, maybe it's an all guys thing, but there seemed to be a pressure. Hello, I'm back. Great. And there seemed to be a pressure that the guys who say to me, are you a virgin? You go, for it, I'm no virgin. No. I've been with all them girls over there, right? And nobody wanted to admit it. And so it was just, my friend Jim says it's like, if you've ever seen them old prisoner of war films, where they used to tie the prisoner to a big ball and chain so they couldn't escape, and they're kind of dragging this thing behind him. He was going, what's that? Sorry, it's my virginity, right? Anybody want that? You know, you're trying to get away from it, right? And so you used to be embarrassed of it, right? So I think it's good once in a while, just to say, I'm a virgin at the top of your lungs, right? And just to celebrate it a little bit. So I'm going to give you all a chance. I'm going to count to 4, and on 4, you have to shout at the top of your lungs, I'm a virgin, okay? Here we go. Big building here. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Nah! No way, mate. Go away, Ginger. Okay? And so, it's a bit weird. Sometimes people do that, and we did it in Port Stewart lately, and one girl leaps up to the front seat and goes, I'm a virgin! It's deadly. And what's it? We also did it at school lately, and somebody's walking past and heard everybody cheer and stuck their head in and went, so man. Very weird. So most of us are, but sometimes there's a pressure that says, and definitely in my school, most of the guys were virgins, but they didn't want to admit it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's actually quite cool, and you shouldn't let each other pressure each other to lose your virginity. So if you're a virgin, well done, great. It says here my first disco, and this is when I started sort of dating for the first time. As I said, I was a bit socially awkward, and when my mates invited me to the disco, I wasn't really. I didn't want to go for a couple of reasons. One was they were big into drinking. I didn't really like the taste of it, and also my brother, who's about 15 years older than me, used to drink quite a bit. And I don't know if you've seen an older brother or somebody, and he used to share the same room as me. And sometimes you let him be asleep, and he'd come in late at night. And I remember you see him kind of creeping through the door, and you look over your sort of blankets, and you see this. You see this guy coming in and going, right? And he's just kind of wobbling all over the place. I remember one day, he wobbles all the way over to our wardrobe, opens the wardrobe, and just goes, bleh, right? And just carrots everywhere. Okay? Yeah, he was sick. And so I wasn't into it for that reason. And I also didn't see the sense of, I've got a couple of wee daughters, and I remember Lucy, when she started to walk, do you know that stage when kids are about 1 and they just start to walk and they're hanging on to the furniture, but they're nearly ready to walk, and they're kind of like this here, and you go, come on, you can do it, you can do it, and they're like, you go, come on, and you go, and then they fall down, and you go, you stupid wee. No, you don't, you take something and you hit them. So, right, thank you. So I didn't see the sense, and then sort of learning how to walk, and then going back to the place where you couldn't walk. And also, the guys in my class, they liked the odd fight. They were quite friendly guys. They liked to take people's cars and take them for a spin and then burn them that night, right? And so, I wasn't kind of into the drinking, I wasn't into the fighting scene. But my mate Brandy goes, now come along, sure, there's a slow set in the middle of the night, you can ask a girl up for dancing, maybe you'll get a snog. And I'm thinking, sounds good, I like girls, right? And so I went along for that reason. And I remember the scene right off at the start of the night, everybody's up on the dance floor, and it's all the fast songs, and they're all dancing away. And then halfway through the night, the DJ puts all the romantic music on, and all the slow music comes on, and everybody disappears off the dance floor, except for those who were dating somebody already. And this is the stage, apparently, ladies, when us guys are meant to go and ask you up for a dance. And I'd never done this before, and I thought my mates had been here before, they must know how to do this, I'll watch them and learn from them. So I go over and they're all standing there with their pints, and there's me with my Coke. And so I said, come on, Brandy, ask somebody up. And he goes, I'm not asking them up. I goes, Mal, Finn, they all said no. And what happens when you egg your mates and start doing that? You do it. And I'm like, I'll show you, right? Right? And I hadn't thought this through at all. And there's a crowd of about 10 girls on the other side of the dance floor, and I thought, okay, I'll just go over and ask one of them. I kind of remember the 3 rules, okay, don't smile, you'll be all right. And I'm walking across, and I don't know what it is, ladies, but you just get very strange at this time. This is what we see, right? We're walking across, and you be with your friends having a wee drink, and you're talking to each other, and you're like, and then you see us coming from the corner of your eye, and you're like, hello. Who's he looking at? Is he looking this way? He's a nice one? He's ugly, run, right? And then he's all going crowds of about 6 to the toilet or something, I don't know what that's all about. And we don't understand that, right? So I'm walking across, my mates are all watching this, and I just picked one of the girls in the middle and I said, listen, do you fancy a dance? Now, if she had just said no, I could have got away with it, but she didn't just say no, she goes like this. Right? Now, my friends can now see her from the other side of the dance floor shaking their head, and all I hear is, hey, McNally, you loser! Because I'm going, oh. Great. And I panicked. I didn't know what to do next, so I went, do you fancy dance? Do you fancy dance? Do you fancy dance? Asked all the girls, all their heads are shaking like this, right? I look over here, my friends are now crying, laughing, right? It is not a good scene. I'm completely embarrassed, and I panicked. I thought, how am I going to save face? You know, if you're going to start drinking, maybe this is the right time. And so I kind of went up to the bar and I ordered a pint of beer, and I thought, that's stinking, can I have a vodka and coke? No, that's stinking too, can I have a pint of coke and a vodka and coke? And I tried to drink it all that night and hated it. And the whole night, the mates were just laughing at me, and I became the butt of the joke. And even next week at school, I just got shreds torn off me. I'm alright now, don't worry, I'm alright. So, but within about 3 months of that scene and all the pressures that go with it, I was drinking like a 10-glass bottle of vodka straight, and all of a sudden, I'm like my brother, I'm the one coming home late at night going, wait, hold on, right? And I remember saying to myself, how did I do that? I remember I said I wouldn't do that, and all of a sudden I'm here doing this. And I started thinking about it, and I realised actually how much, for me, it was a couple of things. I suppose my self-esteem wasn't that good, and I was you always want to fit in with your mates and not look daft. And so the way I used to handle it was, my mates would tease me the following week. They said, you asked so-and-so out, and she said no. And I went, really? Seriously? I must have been full, because I wouldn't say, yeah, I wouldn't ask her out if I was sober. And I blamed it on the booze, right? And that's how I coped with it. It wasn't the best way of handling it, but it was just one of the ways I chose to do that at the time. So that kind of pressure is big. One of my mates went this far to make sure he didn't lose face. He actually, before he went to the disco, he bought a tin of dog food and stuck it in his coat pocket. And I remember one time he's walking across the dance floor to ask one of the girls up. And ladies, sometimes when we're doing this, even before we get there, you've decided you don't want to dance, and that's fair enough, and we have to learn just to deal with that. But we didn't know how to do it at the time, so he's walking across, and she's going, I'm not interested. But he keeps just walking, takes out the tin of dog food and goes, there you are, love. And just walks off, right? Now, I told this to some mannequin school in the Antrim Road lately, and one of the guys thought, that's great, that's really funny, I must do that. So he did that there and walked away going, yeah. The girl took the tin of dog food, chucked it at him, and he got 3 stitches, so I wouldn't recommend it, right? So, but there is that pressure. You are attracted, you're meant to be attracted to each other, but managing that, it can be difficult. And into all that, you have this. Your hormones, okay? And they just have a life of their own. And the speed and the intensity of them are different for guys and girls. Guys, you'll know this, we don't even have to be thinking about anything sexual, and sometimes it just happens. Okay? And they just kick in, right? And so, it's a bit like this, ladies, you'll know this, guys' hormones, they're a bit like gas cookers. It doesn't take too much to turn us on, just a wee spark, right? And then we light up like a bonfire on the 12th, right? So, but yous are slightly different. Yous are a bit more like electric cookers. Takes you a while to warm yous up, alright? So hands up here if you've played Spin the Bottle. Come on now. Hey. What, Craigavon's very excited about Spin the Bottle? Yeah. So, it's an international game, isn't it? They play it around the world, everybody plays it for years. And here's where it goes a bit strange, because the hormones and the intensity of them are different from guys and girls. Ladies, you might be holding the guy's hand, and your hormones will be like this. You'll be like, la 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 la. You know, and the flames are simmering down here. But a guy might be holding your hand, and he'll be like, wow, woman, right? And he'll just be a different kind of fish, right? And so, when it comes to Spin the Bottle, we used to do it. Just explain the rules, how you know it works. You should normally get a crowd of guys and a crowd of girls. Put the bottles in and you spin the bottles. You're right. You spin the bottles, whoever the bottle points towards, then 2 people go around wherever you're hanging out behind the garages or something, and they kiss for a few minutes, and then you come back and you spin the bottle again, and you keep doing that all night until everybody's kissed everybody and your lips are all numb and you go home, right? And but where it gets kind of weird is, as I say, you go back there and you think as a girl you're just going back for a wee kiss. He gets around there, lights up like, whoa! And he's got like 10 arms that want to go everywhere, and you as a girl then have to take up karate just to fight him off, right? So it's tricky, and you've got to pay attention to that. At the start I wasn't aware of the attraction of my hormones, and then I had to become aware of it, so that I didn't put sexual pressure on people that way. Another pressure which is different to this culture now, which wasn't here years ago, is this. Porn has gone massive. This wasn't something that even people talked about years ago. I wouldn't celebrate that too much. But it's worth $6.2 billion now. It's worth more than ABC, CBS and NBC American network channels put together. In the UK, you get something like 30 million hits. It's phenomenal growth in this industry, and it's changing how we look at each other and how we treat each other. And we're really putting expectations on each other which are inappropriate most of the times. So I think years ago, people didn't really have access to this. But because of the internet and so on, things have really changed. So stand up if you have broadband or a computer in your house. Just stand up. Okay, broadband. Okay, that's virtually everyone. Okay. Now stay standing if you have 2 or more computers. 2 or more. My goodness, seriously. Most of you, that's over 2/3 by a lot. Stay standing if you have 3 or more computers. 3 or more. Okay, good. 4 or more. 4, we're still in there. Fantastic. 5. 1 or 2. 5. Okay, we're down to 3 people. 6. Oh, lost you on 6. Okay, fair enough. So about 5 or 6. 7. You must open a computer shop or something. This has kind of changed how we access information. As I said, years ago, like in the 70s and 80s, if people wanted to get porn, you had to go down to a wee CD shop somewhere and buy a magazine and sneak it out kind of thing. But now you can go into the privacy of your own room, click online, and you can see some stuff that you just wouldn't have let yourself see years ago. And it's become a big pressure. It doesn't teach you how to do relationships and friendship. It just sexualizes each other, and you can't really keep a long-term relationship in that context. So that's a big new thing there to watch out for. A couple of things for me. And when I left school, I went to this party scene in Belfast, and it was heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, transsexual, and transvestite. So it was very sexual, right? And in that scene, a lot of people were kind of involved in high-risk behaviour, and they were sleeping around with each other. And I started doing that as well. And so what happened? I suppose a couple of things happened at that stage. One was a lot of my friends started to get STIs. One of my closest friends then got HIV, and then one of our friends then actually died of it. And so we kind of just ended up going, my goodness, what are we doing? And this is back in the 80s when retroviral drugs weren't really around. And so I kind of got scared of the way we were behaving and treating each other. And then another thing that happened at that stage is after about 40 years of marriage, my parents separated, and that made me go, what the hell happened there? You know? And so I kind of threw my world for a bit of a spin, and I had real questions about, well, then how do you make relationships work, and how do you have a loving one and have a successful one, which is you enjoy? And so I started asking sort of more deeper questions about that at that stage, and a couple of things sort of came clearer to me. One, I kind of left the scene I was in for a start because the amount of temptation there and the kind of lifestyle choices I was deciding were too risky. And I came away from that, and I started looking for like models of relationships that were working, and looking at families and saying, how are they doing that, and how are they resolving their problems, and started to discover there was a lot of skills in our house that we just didn't pick up along the way, and how to do conflict resolution, how to resolve problems when you have them in a healthy way. So at that stage, I met this girl, Deirdre, who I was attracted to her. I liked her. At the start, she probably didn't want to go out with me. She didn't really trust me. You know, I was kind of a bit of a bad boy, and she was a good girl as such. And so it took her a while to actually trust me. So when eventually I did ask her out, she goes, okay. But I said to her, listen, I don't want to treat you the way I've treated girls in the past. I want to try and work out how do we develop a loving friendship and an intimate friendship that didn't involve just getting physical. And so could we set some physical boundaries while we're dating? And she's kind of looking at me, well, what do you mean? I says, well, I got these guidelines from a guy in England, and I thought they were quite helpful. So I suggested these for when we were dating. Number one, could we not spend long periods alone together? Because if I'm with you for a while and we're snogging, my hormones start to bubble, and then you're in trouble, okay? And so she kind of smiles and goes, okay, I know what you mean. Number two, let's not lie down together, because if we lie down, my brain shuts down, okay? Number three, let's not take each other's clothes off. And I knew she wasn't that kind of girl, but I just wanted to state that because of relationships I was in the past, that we went there quite quickly sometimes, and I didn't want to go there because it didn't, even though I was having sex with some girls, there was no real friendship or bond, and it seemed quite empty, and it wasn't fulfilling in that sense. And a lot of times it was just selfish on my part or the other person's part as well. And number 4, which made her think for a second, was this. If you haven't got one, don't play with somebody else's. Okay. A couple people are going, oh yeah. So the less said the better, I think you know what I mean, right? And all I was doing was, I became aware of my attraction, I became aware of the pressures that were going on around my culture and my mates, but I was also aware of my hormones and all that as well. So I just said, well, Deirdre, rather than actually putting the pressure on you and letting the flames get too high as such, let's set the boundaries back here so that I can keep control of myself and we don't go there with it. And then we started to develop a great friendship in that sense. But a couple of other things happened, or things I still had to resolve, and that was this. Have you ever had 2 friends who date each other and then they stop dating but they're no longer friends, they fall out with each other? Yeah. Doesn't it do your head in? Yeah. I hate it, and you're normally stuck in the middle trying to be friends with both of them, and then you become the enemy. What are you doing talking to them, you know? And he says, I don't have favourites here, I'm trying to be both your friends. And I used to wonder, why is that? Why can't they just end the relationship and keep the friendship? And I heard a guy in America talking about this lately, and I thought it was an excellent way of understanding it. The guy was called Dean Sherman. He's actually a Presbyterian minister in America, but he's actually the character that Ned Flanders is based on, you know, from The Simpsons. And the animator who created Ned Flanders lives in the same street as him, and they're good mates. But he just sort of morphed him into this character, sort of super Christian character, you know, and created Ned Flanders. And so what happened was, Dean was talking about when he was a teenager playing baseball with his mates, and he stood too close behind the batter. The guy swung the bat back, smacked him right in the face. And the team obviously run over and he's holding his face. And they said, Dean, show us your face. And he takes down his hand and they all go. And he knows it's not good, and his head is just in a world of pain. So he runs over to the changing rooms and he looks in the mirror, and this is what he sees. This is one of his 2 front teeth, right? And it's cracked right from the gum right down halfway. But worse than that, out of the tooth is hanging his nerve ending, right? So his nerve ending is completely exposed at this stage, and you know what that's like. Somebody's like, you know, it's like if you drink like a bit of ice cream or a hot drink and you've got a raw nerve. It's excruciating, isn't it? You're like, and the metaphor he drew from this, which I thought was helpful, was he was saying our bodies have ways of protecting us so that we don't get hurt, and so there's meant to be calcium around this nerve ending so that you don't feel that pain. And he said there's certain ways you can protect yourself so your feelings and your emotions don't get hurt. And that's why the friendships end, because when they get hurt, you end up ending the friendship. Let me explain it this way. Normally, with the whole dating game, you're hanging out for a while, you see somebody you're attracted to, you like them, and you hang out, you talk about some things you have in common. You have what I call these wee heart charges where you're attracted to them, and they kind of fire off. You might have some common interests, hang about with the same people, and more hard charges go off. And eventually you think, I really like this person, I'm going to ask them out. And you start dating, you start snogging them, you think snogging's fantastic, that's really good. And again, more hard charges are going off. And then you start talking about life and your hopes and your dreams and your future and where you want to take your life and so on. And that starts to bond us even more, till eventually you have a kind of heart connection where your feelings come from, I don't just like you, I love you, and you kind of fall in love with each other. And then you have that connection or a soulmate and things like that. That's a basic model of how it works, okay? So I'm like, it's lovely. But where it goes wrong is this, when the friendship doesn't work. Say, for example, the guy really likes her. She likes him, but her feelings aren't as strong as his. And so he's gone from a place where he's going, I really like you, I think you're fantastic. In fact, I love you. And maybe in his head he's thinking, I'd love to marry this girl. And she's thinking, do you know what, I'm thinking about ending the relationship, but I still like him as a friend. And so what normally happens is he puts all his feelings and emotions out there, and that person normally says, no thank you. And then that person gets hurt because they thought that the other person felt the same. And he goes, well, if that's the case, then stuff you, and they kind of walk away from the relationship. And I suppose it's a bit of an immature response, but it makes sense, because if your feelings are out there, you do feel like that nerve ending, and you do feel a bit hurt. And so the trick for relating and dating was not to share your feelings and emotions any further than the other person's committing theirs, so you don't lead them on or make them think that there's more to this than there really is. I didn't get this right for a while, but the sound's all over the place, isn't it? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. And the last couple... Hey! So, and the last couple of relationships I was in, I managed to get it right, and so I got infatuated sometimes with girls and I let my feelings run away, or vice versa, they did with me, and then I ended the relationship, and somebody was always getting hurt. So the last couple of times I managed to keep mine in check, and so did the person. I feel like a Dalek or something. And I kept mine in check, and so when I did actually end the friendship with the girl I was dating, we actually maintained the friendship, and even now she's married years later and she still comes around to our house with her kids and so on, and we're still best of friends. But we protected the friendship and didn't sacrifice that. So it just takes a while to learn that you've got to guard your feelings and emotions. Don't let them run away, and don't let them get infatuated. My sister-in-law lately, she took a guy to her formal from Waterford. After one date with her, he said, listen, I want to sell up my flat and move up to Belfast, and I want to live with you. And she's like, oh, hold on, it was just a date. And she ended the relationship just like that. And he was all heartbroken. And so he didn't talk to her for about 2 weeks, and then rang her up about 2 weeks later and says, sorry, no, look, I'd rather be a friend in your life than not in your life. And she goes, what do you think this is, Hollyoaks? The saying's all right. And I understand what she was doing. She just realised this guy wasn't very good at controlling his feelings. And also, if your self-esteem is poor, like mine was, you kind of look for relationships to try and meet that, to make you feel better, and it doesn't really work like that. You get your self-esteem built up by having lots of friends who really like you and value you for who you are. So, let me just take that somewhere. So there was 4 guidelines for dating, the boundaries for dating. There's also 4 heart responses when you're dating. Number 1, yeah, let's click past that one. Yeah, that's okay. Number 1, okay. Something happens which lasts, that's decent. And number 2, something happens which doesn't, fair enough. Number 3, nothing happens and you move on, okay, that's good. Or number 4, nothing happens which you refuse to accept and you become a stalker. Right. Now, thank you. So, it's a good way of looking at it, but you just got to pay attention to that, because we do try to manipulate each other, and when people try to end the relationship, we go, please don't, I really like you, and then you make them feel bad if they try to end it. You have to learn to let the person go. You can't control that. You'll only damage the friendship, and then they'll resent you for it. And that was just something you kind of learn along the way. So let me try and summarize this. Oh no, one other thing. That girl Deirdre I was dating, I was telling you about the guidelines we set. A couple of things happened. My feelings for her were getting stronger and stronger, and I was thinking, gosh, I really like this girl, she's great, and we had a lot of things in common, and we built a really good, intimate friendship. And I was starting to say, gosh, I think I'm falling in love with this girl, and I could see myself long term being with her. And so I ended up going, actually, I don't know if I've got an STI, because I've never got checked. And as Janice was saying, a lot of the STIs, like chlamydia and so on, don't have any symptoms. And so you might have it and you don't know. And even things like HIV can go undetected for a long time. And because some of my friends had caught that and I was in the same scene that they were in, I had a genuine fear there. I thought, gosh, I'm going to need to get tested. And so, because I didn't know what to do, because I thought, gosh, what if I do have an STI? What could I say, hey, Deirdre, I love you, would you marry me? And by the way, here's an STI, you know. And it just didn't seem like the loving thing to do. So I ended up going down to the Royal, and they have the gum clinic down there, and they do a few tests on you. They're quite simple and painless. And then they invite you back a week or 2 later and give you the results of that. And they have counsellors and so on to help you through that. But for that 2 weeks, I was kind of dreading it, because my feelings for her had grown so well, and it was the best friendship I had with a girl that I managed right. and I didn't want to end the relationship. So when I went back, fortunately for me, the results were good and I didn't have any STIs. But unfortunately for a lot of my friends, that wasn't the case, and worst case scenarios for some, and it just changed their whole future and relationships in that sense. So the good thing is for me, as I said, the relationship went on. We did fall in love with each other. I ended up marrying her, which was great. She was a virgin when I met her, and she stayed a virgin until we got married because I managed to control myself that well. And then we now have 4 lovely little ginger kids. That's great. Okay. That's very nice. So, of one of which I seem to kick or something. Let me summarize that, guys. You were excellent paying attention. I really appreciate it. Let me just summarize all the stuff I've been saying there. Guard your heart, your feelings and emotions, that you don't share them or let them run away with you or get infatuated with somebody until you work out all the other stuff that's important to learn. Guard your mind in this world where things are getting so sexualized in our culture and the media that you don't start eroticizing relationships and don't build any friendship. It just damages the intimacy in a friendship. Be careful of negative peer pressure, because we all tease each other that we don't put the pressure on our mates to feel like they've got to lose their virginity and so on. Create safe boundaries while dating, them 4 ones I kind of mentioned. Work out where your flames start to light up and set a boundary so you don't physically put pressure on the person. And then most importantly, learn how to develop that friendship and develop that love. For me, as I said, when I had sex before, there was no real bond or emotional connection, and it was quite selfish. But when I developed a really good friendship and intimacy with Deirdre, when we did get married and have sex, the sex was just so much better in that context. Guys, thanks very much. These were great.